so much for having us. We're obviously sitting in the beautiful Patterson house in Aranda, and it's such a joy to get to experience what's on the other side of that wall. So thank you very much for having us in. We'd really love to hear, I guess, a little bit about what it felt like to live on this side of the big wall on the street and in such a beautiful piece of architecture.
Well, I think as teenagers we weren't terribly fussed. No. My main experience of enjoying the house was when my parents were elderly and I would come and stay and look after them. And it was just fantastic to be in the bush and in a really beautiful space. It really helped me to help them.
That's so lovely. It actually has such an incredible connection to the bush, doesn't it? Which was obviously important to your parents when they chose the block. And
yeah, so Dad had a bit of a campaign. I think he had avoided owning a house for a long time and lived in a university house, and then this was a very deliberative process. He picked what was then the highest block in Canberra. It's quite a steep slope and it's very well connected to the bush with the reserve at the back, but it would have been very attractive for him to walk to work, which he did.
Originally the house was meant to be rendered and white, but when the bricks were seen in their bush setting, it seemed more appropriate to leave them.
Yeah, much to the chagrin of the brickies.
And so the house is really a fabulous kind of result of a great collaboration. Obviously it's not a standard house, and so it needed a wonderful client, an incredible mind and an architect and a builder who could actually kind of pull that all together. Can you tell us a little bit about that collaboration?
And Dad did say it was one of the most creative, exciting things he ever did in his life, and he just loved it. Because he did have an engineering background, so he was right into the designing and construction and everything. And my parents did have, you know, all sorts of ideas, because it was that period in history where houses were opening up. They wanted an open space. My mother wanted to be part of everything when she was cooking and washing up. And so it was sort of a big experiment about how do you live.
That fireplace, you know, for her, a house without a fireplace would be like living in a shipping container. It just was not going to happen, and it really is a very, very successful fireplace. It has Tallietti's signature holes in it. It has Dad's thermal experiences because it's got a big metal shield behind it that heats up. It has a damper, that just big steel plate that slides in and out. It focuses the whole room.
And Mum wanted the bench as a reminder of in Hungary where you sit around the wood stoves.
So you can actually kind of sit on the edge of the fire itself.
Yeah.
People do.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Because it would get wonderfully warm. Beautiful spot to sit. And one of the things I love most about this house is that from every room you see nothing but bush. And even from the very start when you come up from the street, you know, it's a journey through the bush into the house. And then from every room you look out into the bush, and the sense of privacy is just incredible.
That was very important to my mother in particular, yeah.
I mean, it has a forbidding exterior. And Mum was quite forbidding. That was her personality. Then it's juxtaposed by this circular courtyards and things like that. So, you know, it has a softness to it. So Dad is an engineer. I think it's worth that collaboration between Mum, who was, you know, she was a psychiatric social worker and quite flamboyant, a bit like Talietti. And Dad, who was, you know, it was like a Cheshire cat. He was very considered and did an amazing amount of very meticulous research into each detail in the house. The floor, for instance, came from, you know, northern Queensland. It's so hard and sits on a cement platform that you know, it was just a terrifying thing for a builder to have to engage with.
It's Johnson River hardwood. We were camping in northern Queensland and my parents were looking in the toilet block at how it was constructed with these beautiful timbers, and they went, "Oh, what's that?" And then that's what they got.
That's what they chose.
Yeah, you'd never get it now.
There's no boundary fences, and the bush just flows around. It's, you know, we know where the boundary is approximately. It doesn't really matter, but it means you borrow the bush to the extent you need to, and it's just a lovely arrangement.
Again, that was a campaign of my father's writing letters to the department saying, arguing and fighting not to have paling fences, which were obligatory.
It's set on quite a steep block. It's quite high, and being on the top of a hill made of exceedingly hard rock, the excavation, and there was a lot of excavation, nearly was the undoing of this project, and there were some compromises that had to come from that. Dad's brief was quite brutal. It was simple. He did not want to see any houses in the valley, so Talietti put the card table on top of the Lancia, cup of coffee. They came and sat at the spot where the dining room table was going to go and looked out over the valley while the brickies bricked up to the height, and when the houses disappeared, the capping stone went on. The other thing he was quite insistent on was no lawns, no lawn mowers, and he didn't want to hear a lawn mower, and he achieved that. He wanted to look out into the bush, he achieved that. He wanted the house sited in a way that soaked that bush, the sun. He was quite, and I'm sure Talietti had a lot to do with it, clever in the way he borrowed the climate to describe different areas of the house during different parts of the day, different times of the year.
Yeah, and Talietti was remarkable at adapting to everything constantly.
Yeah.
Very practical, very adaptable, collaborative, and...
Oh, he was. And Dad was, being an engineer, was good at drawing things, so he could draw something on a bit of paper. Talietti could absorb it, he would add the art, and the two worked extremely well together. They became close friends, and the place became a bit of a, I don't know, shrine to both of them.
Well, it's an absolutely wonderful space to be in and a real joy to get to experience it.